Peter Szijjártó in Budapest, welcome to Hard Talk.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Foreign Minister, the relationship between your country and the European Union, the institutions of the EU, appears ever more dysfunctional. How concerned are you about that?
Well, what I would say is that we definitely have debates with the institutions in Brussels. Actually, we are under continuous attack. Whatever we decide, European institutions find a way to put some pressure on us and try to blackmail us in order to change our decisions and do not take advantage of the national competencies. I think the major issue is that the European Union's future is under debate now. I mean, how we can make the European Union stronger in the future. And there are two major approaches in this regard: a federalistic type of approach, which is represented by the institutions themselves and which would like to build kind of a United States of Europe, which we definitely oppose. And there's another approach, which is now in minority, I have to admit, and this is represented by Hungary as well. And this approach says that we need strong European Union, but a strong European Union must be based on strong member states. And that's why we do not support any other competencies to be brought to Brussels from the member states. And this is the core of the issue. This is core of the debate we do have among ourselves, but I would like to underline again that our goal is to make the European Union stronger, and definitely Brussels thinks differently in this regard.
Yes, I mean, that philosophical debate about the future of Europe is something that's been going on for decades, and I dare say will go on for decades more. But there's a much more day-to-day problem here, which you, as Foreign Minister, as chief diplomat of your country, you have to wrestle with, and that is that many EU leaders, that is heads of state, as well as the institutions themselves, see Hungary as acting in a way that is completely antipathetic to the values of the EU, and that is concerning specific policy decisions made in Hungary. Are you prepared to consider changing your approach?
No, definitely we are not going to change our approach, and I don't agree with those whom you have quoted here. We act according to the common European values. We act according to the common European regulations. These are all perceptions. These are all politically motivated perceptions. We are a conservative, Christian democratic, patriotic government with a very stable background in parliament and in society, which gives a very, very minor, very, very small room for external interference in the country. I think this is the biggest problem of those who are attacking us. We are always happy to discuss concrete issues, issue by issue, regulation by regulation. We are ready for the debate. We are ready for the dialogue. But putting forward perceptions, I think, simply does not make any kind of sense.
We'll go through it issue by issue, but before we get to the specific issues, would you acknowledge this is going to cost Hungary? It's become plainer in the last week that it's going to cost you potentially billions of euros because the EU is not releasing its special post-COVID recovery funds, 7 billion euros of which Hungary has applied for. It's not going to release those funds for you unless you comply with the so-called rule of law values of the EU. And in the latest report just come out from Brussels, the EU sees, quote, insufficient safeguards against political influence in your system, risks of clientelism, favoritism, nepotism in public administration, risks arising from the link between business and political actors. This is going to cost you money.
Steve, let me give you answers in three different points. I promise I'll be short. First, it is just being simply ridiculous what you have quoted from this report, and please do not take it personally because it's not you, it is a report what I'm speaking about. This is a politically motivated, biased, unbalanced, unfair, blackmailing type of document. Second point I want to make is...
Well, let's start with point one. You can say that. You talk about attacks.
Yeah, okay.
You've now just issued your own very grave attack on the conclusions of an EU body. You can do that, but it's not going to change their conclusions. I come back to the point, you're supposed to be the chief diplomat. You're supposed to find ways through these problems. All you're doing with me is ratcheting up the rhetoric.
Look, I'm not going to be ready to give up the national interest. And I will never be shy to protect my country. And I never be shy to stand up against lies against my country. Because these, what you have quoted, and once again, Steve, it's not you, is the report, is being based on lies. These are simply not true. These are politically motivated politically motivated attacks against my country. This has been the case, Steve, since we have taken office 11 years ago here in Hungary, a conservative, patriotic, Christian democratic government, which definitely goes against the international liberal mainstream, and that's the consequence. But I'm not going to be
all I can say to you, Foreign Minister, is all I can say to you, Foreign Minister, is that you shouldn't have signed up to the club, because the club has rules, and you have to accept those rules as long as you're in the club. And the latest rule, which you accepted last year, was that there would be conditionality on the release of these very important recovery funds. You signed up to that. You're going to have to accept it.
No, look. We are members of the European Union. We act according to the European values, and we act according to the European regulations as well.
Well, you don't act according to the values, as we know from this report.
We do. But this report is simply a bunch of lies, I have to tell you. We act according to the common values. We act according to the common regulations. And what the European Commission makes is the following, Steve, that they use the European funds for blackmailing. They use the European funds to interfere into domestic political issues which are being based purely on national competence. And this is absolutely unacceptable because, look, this is what I'm telling you. The Hungarian people and Hungary itself has been contributing to the European economic achievement. European funds are based on the European political achievement. We are contributing to that. And European funds are not matters of generosity of our friends in Brussels. These are not humanitarian donations. These are the money, this is the money of the European taxpayers, including the Hungarian people. So blackmailing us with not releasing financial funds based on political issues is simply unacceptable, and even more than that, goes against the European values and European regulations.
Well, you can call it blackmail, but ultimately the money sits in Brussels, not with you, and you won't get the money unless you change course. And there's another point to what you say. That is, you draw this distinction between national competencies and the business of the EU. But the truth is, again, because you've signed up to the club, you have to adhere to core European values as adjudicated by the European Court of Justice. And in one very important area right now, the Europeans believe you are again flagrantly violating their standards. And that comes with your new law, which bans what you call the promotion of homosexuality and information about LGBT issues in your schools. The way it's seen in Europe is it's a flagrant violation of European values.
Steve, you know, in the European Union, there's a very, very clear division of competencies. There are competencies which are the ones of Brussels, so-called community competencies, and there are competencies which are purely national. This is being written in the European regulations. It's crystal clear. It's black and white. If I can come back just for one sentence to the money, I can tell you that even without the releasing of these funds, we will be able to significantly increase the achievement of the Hungarian economy. We will have a very significant GDP growth at the end of the year, even without these funds. Now, regarding the law, what you were kind enough to mention, Steve, here the fact is the following, that the Hungarian parliament has modified some already existing laws. Now, this has two consequences. The first consequence is that crimes committed in relationship with pedophilia are being penalized, sanctioned in a very, very hard, very severe, very serious way. The second part of the law says that it is the exclusive right of the parents to conduct the education of their children regarding sexual orientation as long as they are under the age of 18. This is what the law says. It says that it is being prohibited to present explicit pornographic content to these children, to present the changing of gender for the kids, and to promote homosexuality for the kids. Once again, I want to say that for the kids under the age of 18.
Let's try to be simple and clear here. Simple question. Is sex education happening in Hungarian schools, and will it continue to happen?
Look, the children study biology. And in biology, you do have
I'm asking you a simple question. I'm asking you a simple question. Does sex
Yeah.
education happen in
Yeah,
Hungary
and I'm
schools?
asking in a very, and I'm
No, I'm not talking
answering
about biology. I know you
answering in
teach
a very
biology.
simple way.
I'm talking about sex education,
Yeah.
which includes education about relationships, giving kids positive information about the diverse nature of sexual relationships. Does that happen in Hungary's schools?
Look, the education regarding sexual orientation can definitely take place by professional staff, by authorized staff. What we ban is that activists of certain NGOs enter the schools and kindergartens and talk to our children without the permission and the knowledge of ours about sexual orientation. I can tell you, Steve, that no NGO. Sorry. If I can just finish, because this is always the thing that you put forward fake news about my country, about the regulations here. You quote some biased reports, and then when we try to explain, we never have the opportunity, because I really do believe that no NGO knows my kids, my sons better than I do. And I definitely stick to my right to conduct their education regarding the sexual orientation, and not an NGO in the school or in the kindergarten.
Well, as you mention your kids,
I don't understand why there are attacks on that.
As you mention your kids, Foreign Minister, I think it's only fair for me to ask you that if one of your kids, I don't know if your kids have reached teenage yet, but as and when your kids reach teenage, who knows, one of them might be gay, who knows, we don't know. But would you, if you had a gay child in school, not want them to receive an inclusive, positive, affirming set of information about homosexuality?
What I know is the following. I have two sons, age of 7 and age of 10. And I can talk to them about basically anything when I see that they reach that kind of level of development, when their circle of interest is reaching there.
But that's not the question I asked you about. I asked you about the messages you want them to receive in school.
It's going to be me. It's going to be me. It's going to be me who is going to talk to them about such kind of issues. I stick to it. No one, no LGBT activist in the school, but me. I'll talk to them about these issues whenever I think it's necessary and whenever I think the situation is appropriate for that.
So here we have another way in which the relationship...
It's another issue.
OK, you've been very plain with me, thank you. Here we have another issue in which we are clearly heading for a car crash between your government and the EU. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has described the law which we've just discussed as, quote, shameful. We know the EU Commission has already launched legal proceedings against you in your government because of this law, because they are quite clear that it violates European values and laws in several respects. This could end up in the European Court of Justice. Is that what you want?
Look, I think what's shameful is what the President of the European Commission has done. You know, because last time it was in communism that the judgment took place before the trial. So the European Commission thinks that this law could go against some common European regulations. That's why they have launched a procedure against us. During this procedure, we will give our arguments, we will discuss, we will debate. If we cannot convince each other, then the issue will go to the European Court. But announcing the judgment even before the trial would be started. This is how it was in communism in Hungary. So it's shameful what the President of the European Commission has done in this regard.
Well, with respect, you've described various things the EU has done as more than shameful. So her expressing an opinion, I'm hardly understanding why you're so upset about that. You're very opinionated about all sorts of things. But the bottom line is your Prime Minister, Mr. Orban, has now announced that there'll be a referendum. He says, and I'm quoting him, with the pressure, he means the pressure from Brussels, on Hungary so strong, only the people's will can protect Hungary. That's classic populism, but it actually, again, doesn't follow the law, does it? Because whatever you might vote in a referendum, you still have to accept the authority of the European Court of Justice, unless you're no longer prepared to do that.
You say populism, I respect you, and I respect your opinion, but I think this is democracy. Because democracy is about the fulfillment of the will of the people. And now the people will have a chance to make their will very clear.
But real democracy is also about respecting the rule of law, and in this case, respecting the European Court of Justice. So frankly, your referendum doesn't mean anything. What really matters is the ruling of the European Court.
No, come on. I mean, considering the will of the people, which means nothing, this is very anti-democratic, I think. I am still sure about the fact that the law which the Hungarian parliament has passed is absolutely in line with the European regulations, because the European Charter of Fundamental Rights says that the parents do have the right to ensure that the education of their kids is in conformity with their social, pedagogical and psychological aspects. So what we have done here is absolutely within the European regulations. And even more than that, issues of education are falling within the national competencies. So a referendum will definitely count. We are ready to give the chance to the people to announce their opinion very clearly, and everybody will have to respect that.
I'm sure you saw, Foreign Minister, last year Freedom House, the democracy watchdog group, they said that Hungary could no longer be considered as a full, free democracy. They describe you now as partly free, and one of their biggest concerns was press freedom in your country and the fact that 80% of the media in Hungary is in one way or another closely linked or associated with the ruling party and the Prime Minister. It's not healthy, is it?
You know, I do not really care about what Freedom House says about my country, because it is being unserious what they do. So saying that 80% of Hungarian media is somehow touched to the government side is just simply a huge, huge, huge fake news. If you spoke Hungarian as you do not, you would be aware that this is absolutely not true. If you look at the internet, you look at what kind of news are being circulated on a daily basis, you will see a huge majority of articles being against the government and a minority of them which are kind of pro what we have been doing. You cannot name, Steve, one sector of Hungarian media where the market leaders would not be very heavily anti-government. So this, what Freedom House says, is a simple lie in this regard as well, unfortunately, I have to say.
Let's talk about the specific revelations we've learned in recent days from a group of international investigative journalists, the so-called Pegasus revelations about the use of new spyware developed in Israel. It apparently has been used to hack into the phones and even the encrypted messaging services of individuals around the world. What is fascinating is that the leaks show that 300 at least Hungarian phone numbers, mostly connected to journalists, lawyers, some business leaders, have been hacked. And a former NSO employee, speaking to the Washington Post, says that the Hungarian government was a client. Why have you been doing this?
I'm sorry, but who says that?
A former employee of this company, NSO, that developed the spyware, says your government was a client.
Yeah, but who is he? I mean, this is someone who says something in a secret or a hidden way, or has any kind of evidences, or did he show any kind of documentation about that? Or I don't know. I mean, you are building a huge international campaign on someone who makes a statement with no evidences, or what are we speaking about?
Well, what are you speaking about? Are you denying it? Yes or no? Did the Hungarian government use this spyware?
Look, don't go into a Soviet type of propaganda, and don't.
Minister, it's a very, very simple question. This has nothing to do with Soviet propaganda. It's a very simple question. Did you use this spyware?
It is because you paint or portray the situation as if there were no secret services in every state, and these secret services would not use different kind of technologies in order to protect national security. As far as I understood from this report, which I guess you refer to, said that there were 45 countries on the globe, 45 governments, and like 60 or 65, I don't remember the exact number, secret services who have bought this technology. My question is it a crime that a secret service buys a technology through which the secret service can protect national security interests? Is that a crime, or why
let me quote you the words of one Direct 36 journalist, Szabolcs Pányi, who we know his phone has been analysed. He was hacked in this way. He was surveilled. The spyware was put on his phone. He says, I am being treated as a threat, like a Russian spy or a terrorist or a mobster. This is a Hungarian journalist who happens to be not a friend of your government, who has been surveilled. And you won't even tell me whether your government is responsible.
Look, what I can tell you is the following. You can be absolutely sure that since we have taken office here in Hungary, which was 2010, we have not monitored, we have not wiretapped anybody in an illegal way. You can be absolutely sure about it. No one was wiretapped just because of being journalist, or no one was wiretapped just because of not being friendly to the government. You can be absolutely sure about that, Steve.
We must end, Foreign Minister. I'm going to leave you with these comments from the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte at the last EU summit. He said, quote, "For me, Hungary has no place in the EU anymore. If you don't like it," he said, sort of directing his comments at Hungary, "there is an alternative. Leave the Union." Would you share that sentiment?
Yeah,
and might you consider it?
No, this Dutch Prime Minister hates the Hungarians. He's kind of Hungarophobic. I can tell him and tell you that Hungary has been in the European Union and will be in the European Union, will be working for a strong European Union in the future as well.
Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó in Budapest, I thank you very much indeed for being on Hard Talk.
I appreciate it. Bye-bye.